The PlayStation 5 Pro is being talked about again over on key2gaming.com, saying that according to their sources, it is in development. It's called Project Trinity. There's an article retweeted by Tom Henderson over on Insider Gaming, who has in himself written up stuff about the PlayStation 5 Pro anyway. Do you want one? Do you want a PlayStation 5 Pro?
No, I don't. I don't need
neither.
one yet. I will happily embrace one maybe in a few years' time, but to me, none of the big game companies have delivered a game that I think even gets close to etching the power out of the regular PS5. Like, where are these Unreal 5 games that are supposedly going to do that? So far, we've had great-looking games. We've had great PlayStation 5 exclusives, but nothing to me that makes it feel like the original console is tapped out in a way that I genuinely did feel about the PlayStation 4 back in the day, because that came out, and even at launch, that and the Xbox One were underpowered, and it felt like they had a limit on them earlier than the PlayStation 5, which has only, as of this year, become widely available anyway. I think it's too soon, but then, who knows, they might sit in it for a little bit and then release it.
So weird, man. Like, I get like the sort of hardware realities of you put a system out, you're constantly refining, you find ways to make components smaller, and whatever else you iterate, you get a smaller PS5. And I guess one of the only negatives of the PlayStation 5 from a casual point of view is the size of it. It is like the overbearing, ridiculous nature of it. Maybe you get a more smaller one and that just makes that work. But yeah, I agree. Like, we're yet to see anything really. I mean, my mind goes to things like it's the instant loading stuff. It's things where I'm surprised by like the raw guts of the hardware doing something, as opposed to just a hyper detailed game, because we've had them for years kind of thing. You can make something look more lifelike. But I personally am more impressed by a whole realm in Final Fantasy loading instantly. Or like Ratchet and Clank, you hit that level with the crystals, you hit that, the whole thing renders immediately. Stuff like that. I need a game that's built around that. I need something that fundamentally wouldn't work on the previous system. And so until they have that, and then we all get sick of them, I don't need the Pro. Like, it's one of those things where I just think that they'll do it because they tapped into the Pro sort of branding with the PS4, and I think they barely talked about that thing's sales numbers. But assumedly it's enough where, depending on the hardware cost, you almost might as well just put the Pro thing out. There's enough elite gamers who will buy everything.
Genuinely.
Like me.
I'm all for more options in gaming as well, and if you release a PlayStation 5 Pro at the same price point, or maybe slightly higher than what the PS5 is going for now, and then you reduce the price of the regular PlayStation 5, which seems like it is happening kind of imminently as they kind of change some of the components or make that production more efficient, then I'm like, sure, you bring this price down, you bring that barrier of entry down, and you give people a quote-unquote premium device that they can opt into or not. To me, this time around, I'm not just going to jump in the same way that I did the PlayStation 4 Pro. The proof will be in the pudding, but I do think that if The Last of Us Part 3 comes out in 2027, I'll be getting a PlayStation 5 Pro for that. Sadly, I know myself too well.
Me too. I know you as well. I will not be doing that, but I wonder, I'll get one day one. I wonder what they can possibly do. Like, because if I think about, glass ceilings that we're hitting in the industry, it's quality modes versus performance modes. It's that idea that you can't just make, assumedly you can't just make whatever the vision is for this game. But I feel like the issues with the industry are way bigger than that. Like, it's crunch, it's lack of focus over time, it's whatever it is. It's all these wider issues that aren't giving you the generation's best games. Like, that's something that a piece of hardware is not going to solve. If anything, it'll just mean that those goals they're trying to hit are even more exorbitant and ridiculous. Yeah, and you'll get even more broken games.
Oh, that's the headline, isn't it? The PS5 Pro will make for more broken games. I love that.
I would be amazed if it solves any of the issues. I mean, I guess it would help with you would assume that it would help with something like Jedi Survivor, where we're talking about raw optimization. Yeah. Maybe there's something on the hardware side that can help with optimization, or I just don't even think we need this at all. I feel like the generation was pushed back by almost 3 years because of the pandemic. So I would delay this by 3 years. We pretty much hit pause on life for 3 years. And then it's like, if we're resuming it now, then you just sort of pretend the PS5 just launched. Hey, by the way, we've got God of War and Horizon. There's launch games. Isn't that good? And then go from there. Yeah. Because nothing happened for the first few years.
No, I agree with that. And that's kind of why I think it's too soon for it, because it does feel like the generation is still starting to only kick in now. But I would say maybe the same was true for the PlayStation 4 Pro. And I do think it's a case of...
I did back then,
yeah. If they come in and they price it too ridiculously and it's way more than a PS5 now, I don't think it'll sell. But I do genuinely think if they knock the PS5 down and make this like the price point that currently has, then I don't think anyone would kind of bat an eyelid, because it's kind of a win-win. If they want to ignore the Pro, fine, get the PlayStation 5 original for a lower price. It does make business sense from that standpoint, I think, just in terms of does the market want this? Or I think that's kind of different to, will the market accept this?
That's true, and I think it's just, I think that's sort of the console side of it as well, where like pro systems or like incremental systems is more of a PC thing. Like, get the latest graphics card, there's one every few years or whatever it is. And for me, the only sell on a console side is like, this is the system that just makes you not have to think about that stuff. Like, you just get to max everything out, all the sliders, all the toggles, get the best version of that game, and you just play. That was the only reason I ever got a PlayStation 4 Pro, because the original PS4, like you said, was struggling and was hitting things at 30 where I could be playing them at 60. And little things like that. But I was like, I just don't want to think about any of this. And I'll pay for the problem to go away if I need to. And I hate that. That's the reality of gaming.
It is.
But I just, like, in a console space, that's sort of like middle ground of like, it's not PC sliders, it's not the underpowered stuff, it's the middle ground. I will pay for a problem to go away so I can just play the game.
We've talked a lot about Sony here, but I kind of want to throw the ball in your court as to what this means for Microsoft, because a few weeks ago, we got the story from, I can't remember who exactly it was, from Digital Foundry, but it was a Digital Foundry podcast where they said they were informed that the Xbox Series X was already their mid-gen refresh. So
you can tell.
You can tell.
I don't make anything for it. Mixed up with the Series S.
My question is, do they stick with that line of thinking, or does the release of the PlayStation 5 Pro prompt them to rethink those plans and say, no, we have an actual mid-gen refresh on the way?
I don't think they can risk doing a third unit. I think that they wait for the PlayStation 5 Pro specs and then they just point at the Series X and just go, we've already got one of them.
Yeah.
Because it'll depend if there's anything that the Series X can do, PlayStation 5 currently can't. That's the weird legal side of it tends to mandate feature parity or whatever, performance parity anyway. Especially, and even on the Xbox side, between Series S and X. So they'd have to break all that stuff for like the next gen, for the next system to be so much, demonstrably better. It would go against their whole sort of like push that like we want everything available everywhere, but we're also going to sell you the best system ever. And then, but you're just paying for frame rates. Like you're paying for maybe a higher resolution or something. Yeah, like the amount of times, the fact that Digital Foundry has exploded is indicative of how like much we have to make all these decisions and research resolutions and zoom in and look at these different things and figure out the best use of your time.
With what you just mentioned there, I don't think throwing money at the problem will ever make that problem go away, just because of how the console industry is built.
I was going to say, not if the industry is like this now.
Well, even before then, like I said, with the rivalry that's going on, even if you got a PlayStation 5 Pro and it had specs on paper better than the Xbox Series X, even then there's no guarantee that the games will run better on it versus the Xbox Series X if they're more optimized for the Xbox. And I think that's always going to be inherent to gaming. And I'm not saying that's a good thing.
No.
I'm just saying that, to me, is why I never view it as I'm going to throw money at this problem for that problem to go away. Because even if you've got the world's most powerful console, it doesn't guarantee crap. It doesn't guarantee that you're getting the world's most powerful games, because if they're better optimized somewhere else, they're better optimized somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what I meant about the issues are bigger. They're more project-based. They're more design-based or whatever it is. But there's an assumption that if you give a set of game developers in particular a set of specs, they can aim for them, as opposed to giving them multiple sets of specs and how that affects the thing that they're trying to build. Thinking back to the PlayStation 2 era, the 360 era, like there were specific sets of specs. There was like specific stuff to aim for. It wasn't, there was like 3 different versions of the 360.
You're right. But oh man.
Well, there was, but they didn't change in terms of the GPU.
I know I'm going round in circles. But you mentioned that, and I just can't help but point out something like Resident Evil 4, which, kind of looked like crap on PlayStation 2 compared to the GameCube version, which was way crisper, or the PC version, which was notoriously a bad port. So that's where I kind of find myself pushing back against that argument, because I'm like, this has always been the case where you've been comparing this stuff and you've been wanting the best version of it. And yes, the Pro kind of phenomenon has exacerbated that, but the idea of this version is less good than this version, which is better than this version, and oh my god, I'm having the fear of missing out or buyer's remorse. That, to me, that's always been integral to the console experience.
If Capcom were designing Resident Evil 4 for all those systems at once, you wouldn't have got Resident Evil 4. Like the fact that they made it for GameCube and then they made a version for PlayStation 2 and then it span off, and that's a different thing to me than designing it. It feels like Capcom hit their vision of that game because they had a set of specs to aim for and they were able to execute on it, and then they figured out how to put it elsewhere, and there were different versions and whatever else. But I do think that's different to a family of consoles and then having an idea for a game and then sort of aiming to put it on various different tiers within that family of systems at the same time.
Right, okay.
I think that would be the distinction for me in that case.
I get the distinction. I don't agree with it, but we'd only go around the same arguments.